Hey, welcome to the Draft Academy. My name is Mike. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys the ins and outs of working with strings in PHP. Now, a lot of times when you're writing your PHP code, one of the most common data types, one of the most common types of information that we're going to be working with is going to be strings. And strings are basically just plain text. So anytime in your PHP program where you want to represent or use plain text, you're going to be working with strings. So in this tutorial, I'm going to just show you guys a broad overview of how to use strings and all the different things that we can do with them. So let's get started. Down here in my PHP tags, I want to show you guys basically how we could print out a string. So I could just say like echo, and then whenever I create a string, I always want to make these open and closed quotation marks, and then in here I could type anything. So I could just type like Draft Academy. And now when I refresh my browser, this is going to get printed out over here. So this is a string. This is plain text. And really, this can just be anything you want. So any plain text that you want to represent or use can be placed inside of a string. And in addition to just printing out the string over here directly, we could also store a string inside of a variable. A variable is basically just a container that will allow us to manage that string a lot easier. So I could come over here, we could call this like phrase, and I could set this equal to this string over here. And now if I wanted to print this out, instead of printing out the actual string, I could just print out the variable, and this will print out the value that's stored inside of that variable. So you can see over here, we're still getting Draft Academy. Now strings can be very cool, and when we're writing our PHP code, there's actually these little things called functions, which we can use to find out information about and modify our strings. So I could use one of these functions in order to do special things with the strings in my program. And I'm going to show you guys a couple of those string functions which we can use. So down here in this little echo command, I'm going to go ahead and use one of these string functions. And like I said, these are basically just like little snippets of code that we can call, and they'll do something to the string. So they'll give us some information about the string, or they'll like modify the string in some way. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of those, and you can just kind of like see how they work. One is going to allow us to convert this to either all uppercase or all lowercase. So in certain circumstances in your programs, you're going to want to make the string upper or lowercase, and we can do that. So I could just say str to lower, and then I'm going to make an open and close parentheses, and I'm actually going to surround the string with these open and closed parentheses. So I'm saying str to lower, open and close parentheses, and then inside of these parentheses, we're putting this variable. And now what you'll see is when I refresh my browser, this is actually all lowercase now. So you can see it converted entirely into lowercase. We could also do the same thing for upper. So I could say string to upper, and now this will convert it entirely into uppercase. So you can see now we just get Draft Academy all uppers. And you don't just have to pass a variable in here. I could pass anything I wanted in here. So if I passed in like dog, now this will print out dog in all uppercase like that. And so that's kind of like a useful way to, take a string that you have in your program and convert it to upper or lowercase. There's another one of these little functions which will tell us how many characters are inside of the string. So I could say strlen, so this stands for string length, and this will tell us how many characters are in that string. So over here we get 15, because there's 15 characters in Draft Academy. And a lot of times in our programs, that will come in handy. We'll be able to figure out like how many characters are inside of a string. Another thing we can do is we can actually find out what the different characters of the string are. So over here, I have this string Draft Academy, right? It's storing the text Draft Academy inside of it. Let's say that I wanted to figure out what the first character in this string was. So I wanted to figure out like, what's the first character in the string? Well, I can actually come over here, and I'm going to get rid of this string length. So you'll notice I just erased all of that. And over here, after I type out the variable name, I'm going to type an open and closed square bracket, just like that. So right after the string, I'm going to type this open and closed square bracket. And in here, I can put what's called an index. And the index is basically going to refer to a specific character in the string. So let's say I wanted to figure out what the first character in the string was. I could actually put a 0 in here, and this is now going to print out the first character in this string. So you'll see when I refresh my page, over here we get this G, because that's the first character in the string. If I wanted to print out the second character in the string, I could come down here and say phrase square brackets 1, and now I'm going to get that I, because I is the second character in the string. So whenever we're using these square brackets, like I said, we can put an index in here and it'll tell us what character is at that index position in the string. And whenever we have a string like this in PHP, we're going to start the indexing off at 0. So I would say that this first character, G, is at index position 0 in the string. The second character, I, is at index position 1, R is at 2, A3, F4, etc. So when we start indexing these strings, in other words, when I assign index positions to the characters in the string, we always start at 0. So that's why down here, when I said phrase 0, this printed out that G. And also, I can do this with things other than just a variable. So again, if I came down here and I just like printed out my name, this will tell me what the first character in that string was. So we're going to get this capital M. Another thing we can do is we can actually modify individual indexes in the string. So I could actually come down here and I could say like phrase, and I could say like phrase 0 is equal to, and I could change this to a B. And now if I was to just print out the phrase, it's going to actually replace phrase 0 with B. So now it's going to say Baraf Academy instead of Giraffe Academy. And that can be really useful. So you can actually modify like individual characters inside of your string. All right, so I want to show you guys a couple more of these little string functions, these little things that we can do to modify these strings. And another one is actually going to allow us to replace certain substrings within our string. So over here I have this phrase variable and it has this string. And I could actually replace like the word giraffe with another word if I wanted to. So let's say instead of it calling this Giraffe Academy, we wanted to call this like Panda Academy. Well, there's another one of these little functions which will allow us to do that. So down here I'm just going to type str_replace, and this stands for string replace. And over here, the first thing I'm going to put inside of these open and close parentheses is going to be the substring that I want to replace. So I'm going to put giraffe inside of here. So I can just say giraffe, and then over here I want to put what I want to replace it with. So we could put panda, and then finally we're going to put one more thing in here, which is going to be the actual string where we want to do this. So I can just say phrase. And now this is going to replace the occurrence of giraffe with panda in the phrase string. So over here, I can just run this program, and you can see now it says Panda Academy instead of Giraffe Academy. And you could really do this with anything. So I could say like, you know, just FFE, for example, and then we could replace that with Panda. And now it's going to be like this, you know, weird word over here that we get. So that string replace can be really useful. And there'll be a lot of circumstances where you might want to like replace a certain character or a certain sequence of characters with another sequence of characters. But finally, there's one more of these that I want to show you guys, and it's basically going to allow us to get like a substring. So over here, I could just type out substr, and basically this is going to allow us to just grab like a section of this overall string over here. So I could just grab like a single word from it, or I could grab just like a couple different characters, and this will allow us to do that. So I'm going to make an open and close parentheses after I say substring. And now inside of here, I want to pass a couple different pieces of information. So I can come over here. The first thing I'm going to do is type out the string that I want to get the substring from. Then I'm going to type a comma. And over here, we can type a starting index. So this will basically be the index where we want to start grabbing the substring from. So remember, I have all of these different characters in this string have indexes. So like this is index position 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Let's say that we wanted to use this substring function to grab this academy word over here. Well, the first thing I need to do is figure out at what index academy starts. So we could actually just start counting. It's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if I put an 8 right here, now this is going to grab a substring from this string starting at index position 8 and going to the end. So we should just get academy. And you can see over here, we just get academy. I could also put another number in here, which is going to be a length. And this will basically say how many characters we want to grab. So if I said like 3 in here, for example, this is going to grab 1, 2, 3 characters. So it's going to grab ACA, and then it's going to stop. So over here, we can get this little substring, just ACA. And this little function can come in handy quite a bit. So that's sort of just some basic string functions that you guys can use in PHP. And to be honest with you, there's a lot more of these. I could spend like a couple hours just going through each of the functions and what they do. But really what I wanted to do in this tutorial was just kind of expose you guys to what this stuff is and expose you to, some different ways that we can work with and modify strings. If you'd like to find out more about these string functions, you can basically just type into Google like PHP string functions, and there'll be like a huge list of all of these awesome string functions that you guys can use. But for this tutorial, I think that's good, and it gives you guys a little introduction into how to use it. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to Draft Academy to be the first to know when we release new content. Also, we're always looking to improve, so if you have any constructive criticism or questions or anything, leave a comment below. Finally, if you're enjoying Draft Academy and you want to help us grow, head over to draftacademy.com/contribute and invest in our future.